President Trump spent the start of his holiday weekend celebrating after signing the bill formerly known as the Big Beautiful Bill into law. But no matter what you call it, it is a major victory for the president and the GOP. Our Power Republican strategist Luke Ball is here in studio up late with me tonight on the Final Five to talk about that and more. Good to see you.
You too, Jim.
What I like was leading up to the passage of the bill, you had a great analogy where you said the president had filet mignon promises, the Senate delivered on hamburger helper. So what did they end up settling on here?
I was really upset with my own party for the way they handled this legislation, because I think that the president's priorities, the things that he was elected on, were poorly reflected in the Senate version of this legislation. So every instance leading up to the passage of this bill, I was railing against the United States Senate. Conservatives, by and large, support the main priorities in the bill. I'm really upset that my party, given a golden opportunity here, did not deal with the deficit in a way that I think was meaningful at all. I understand there's future things we could do. There were provisions behind the scenes that were given to some of the holdouts, a lot of the Freedom Caucus members, who I strongly align with, or my friends on the House. I just think we could have done a heck of a lot better in actually delivering on some of the promises we made, especially for the fiscal hawks.
What would be the biggest victory, though, as you're looking at this in terms of priorities, things that you celebrate, things that you believe strongly in? What was the biggest victory in this package? The
biggest victory in this package was actually cutting taxes and making the tax cuts permanent. That's a major selling point. We were dealing with taxes on tips, taxes on a whole lot of other things, and making permanent the Trump tax cuts. I understand that's what the president wanted predominantly in the legislation, but again, we didn't deal with spending and tax cuts strong enough. We didn't deal with the deficit strongly enough, things that we could have done, and frankly that the House version did a lot better job of doing before they sent it over to the Senate. And a lot of the holdouts worked out a deal where they were saying, hey, Speaker Mike Johnson, if we get these provisions put in our House side of the legislation, we're going to be okay with it, and we're going to work out some other things later down the road in legislation. And when it came back from the Senate, all of those things have been taken out, and the Freedom Caucus was kind of left saying, hey, we had a deal and you guys broke it.
But a lot of people say, well, the Freedom Caucus, they had the chance. They could have put the brakes on it for the time being, and they decided, the president said he wanted this passed by July 4th, so they went along with it anyway.
Any House Freedom Caucus member that wanted to put the brakes full stop on this piece of legislation and be the ones that held it up from passing would not be able to withstand a primary challenge from the president moving forward. Perhaps Thomas Massie can withstand it. I think he's one of the great members of Congress right now that we have, somebody who's able to hold to values and say, look, we have to do this, this, and this. But a lot of the House Freedom Caucus members are in very slim districts, and they could easily be flipped in a primary challenge. So they had to weigh the political costs with what they actually wanted to get out of this piece of legislation.
And that's something worth mentioning, because it's not so much they're worried about losing their seat in a general election. It is those primaries. And we've seen, I mean, you know full well that you've been with members in the past where the internal challenges, sometimes there's a lot of pressure there.
Jim, I so support this president's priorities and am so hopeful for my party that I'm willing to say where we misstep and call things out here and there whenever I don't think we do a good enough job. Again, as you mentioned coming out, I was equating it to the president gave us filet mignon priorities and the Senate gave us hamburger helper delivery. It just diluted what the president's priorities were and didn't do a good enough job in the end. Ultimately, we got a lot of good out of this legislation. I just think that the president was done a disservice by majorities in both the House and the Senate, and I don't want this to come and bite us further down the line, whether it be in the midterm elections or even just future down the road.
One of the byproducts of all of this, and every time you come on, I try to find some connection to North Carolina. Thom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, had come out against this bill. The president said, you know, we're going to go after Tillis, and the next day he says, I'm not running for re-election. So now all of a sudden, there's going to be a big focus on North Carolina, a state that has gone red in all of these Senate elections since, I think, going back to 2014 when Tillis was first elected, defeating Kay Hagan. But regardless, does North Carolina, does that seat go into play?
The straw that broke the camel's back with Thom Tillis was perhaps this piece of legislation, but the writing has been on the wall for many, many years. Republicans censured him a couple of years ago for not supporting the president's priorities on border legislation, for not being socially conservative in areas, and also a handful of other priorities that they saw far beyond this. So Tillis was looking to see whether or not Senate leadership would stick with him if Trump came out against him. You saw those factions start to break during the Hegseth nomination fight, where he was saying, I don't don't know if I want to support this guy. When they didn't stand by him then, I think he kind of knew heading into this legislation they weren't going to stand with him. So now he just kind of went scorched earth and burnt the ships and said, you know what, I'm not going to run for re-election. I'm going to speak my mind.
Real quick before we go, I have to mention Elon Musk over the weekend announced the America Party. He says he wants to start a third party. President Trump said third parties don't work, and certainly we have not seen a lot of success there. Does that serve a purpose, or will that... I don't know many Democrats who are going to go along with Elon Musk. I know a lot of Republicans who might.
Democrats are thrilled with Elon Musk starting a third party. If you have a disagreement in the family, you don't break away and start a new family. And I would submit that any problems that Elon Musk has with the Republican Party, starting a third party is kind of like scratching an itch with a razor blade. I guess you solve the problem temporarily, but at what cost?
I like that we start with a hamburger helper reference and end with scratching each other with razor blades. Luke, good to see you, man.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you. Final Five is back after this.